The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
This is Hard Talk, Power 102 Digital Afternoon Drive. And of course, today, our main host is Karen Nunez Tesheira. And we got a very special guest in the form of Brian Campbell. Good afternoon, Karen.
Good afternoon to you, Karen. Do hear me, Karen now. I'm saying goodbye after myself. I'm so taken to tell you good afternoon, David, because you are also one of our hosts and co-hosts today, as
Yeah.
you were last week, because of the special topic that we have going to continue with from a different slant this week. And of course, welcome Brian Campbell. Not sure if you related to the other Mr. Campbell we had on last week, who was very helpful. But in any event, whether or not, we are very, very pleased to have you on. And it's people like you and citizens like you are willing to speak frankly from your point of view. As we had a little conversation before, that I want you to feel free to express whatever your point of view is. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing with you. It's about you doing your service to your country, which is what we all try to do. And certainly, David McIntyre is no stranger to doing that. He's been doing that for several years. And he has continued to do that and has been kind enough, being very supportive of me, I have to say, because I try to have shows that are meaningful, not just meaningful. Let me just put it that way. So, in a very broad way, let me just say by way of introduction, and I am going to do what I say co-hosting, because some of the questions that, or some of the, I don't want to say really questions as much as maybe queries or clarifications for myself, but more for the audience that is listening from all over the world, as we know, because we are digital, um, to hear your perspective from two persons who actually live in La Brea, and it's going to be about La Brea and its environs, but who I can actually speak about La Brea in a way that I can't, even though I passed through there for 3 years. I told the audience last week, I lived in Point Fortin. Yes, I did for many, many years. Grew up there in my formative years. So made that trip to go to San Fernando and Mosquito Creek and all of that wonderful part of Trinidad to go to school in San Fernando. But what we're going to be talking about, to get to the point, last week we had used as sort of a trigger or jumping off point, as it were, an article that had appeared in the Trinidad Newsday talking about the price of progress, really talking about the impact of the highway on the persons who live in the La Brea and its environs area, how it has impacted them, creating almost a virtual ghost town from their point of view. A similar scenario I've heard being said about Marabella with the closure of Petrotrin, and there's a connection between the two, as we know that is so. But coming out of that, we only were able to advance to the La Brea East thing, and we were not really went beyond a broader discussion, but more importantly, a point that was made to me by someone on another media, which I couldn't ignore, and I said, okay, well, let me put out there and let's hear the response to what extent there's value in what the person has said, because there are people who believe it, I can assure you of that. And not saying they yes or no, I'm just saying, are they well, truly, is it 360-degree information? And that is, the person was kind of says, I'm from that area. Yes, it is no question that the highway did affect the people living in La Brea. And without being more specific than that, because perhaps he listens to this show, so I don't want to say that I don't know his name anyhow. But what he did say, the key point that he made is, I hope I'm not saying it too harshly. I hope I'm not misrepresenting how he said it. But what I took away from what he said was the people of La Brea have themselves to blame. They sat back and expect the government to pay them sort of, although he had empathy for them, although he felt it was hard on them, all those things I do think he did mention. But the bottom line of what he said was, these people are brave, they don't want to do anything, they, basically want a handout, and they expect government to come and rescue them. And it was a little harsh. I had no comeback for that, really, at the time. And I didn't think that was a completely telling what was the position. So I am going to read out something first, and then I'm going to ask Brian Campbell, and then I'm going to ask David McIntyre, who's going to assume his role as being a man of La Brea. He has worked very hard. And yes, because we need people to speak out. And I said I would use this as a case study because I think we could repeat this discussion that we're going to have, Mr. Campbell, across the country. We could repeat this discussion we're having, meaning that to what extent has the government failed the people? To what extent the people have failed themselves? To what extent what is the role of the government really? And to what extent, in this particular circumstance of La Brea and its environs, that some may say they have been abandoned, but they do feel so because there was an article. I'm just going to read two little things, two articles, just very briefly. And they had said in La Brea, they had a big, in November 2022, they said they went to the Labidco, outside the Labidco entrance, where a big tanker was berthed at the Brighton port. They said, we want work. La Brea residents protest, no employment. Residents say we certified a number of trades. I think he's referring to the NESC, which we'll talk about, including fabrication, masonry, scaffolding, hydraulics, rigging, pump repairs, hydraulics, carpentry. And yet we are faced with escalating food prices and services, the cost of transport, etc. And someone said, I won't call the person's name, but they did give their name in the article. I got certified from NESC, yet I cannot get work. How is that fair? And they say it's only like if you only go to sell mangoes. And then another, the contractors apparently who had been contracted to build in Labidco the 14 meters of roadway. At least I went on their website and that's what it said, 14 meters. So if I'm wrong about the 14 meters, I just use what they said. 14 meter roadway. Anyway, they said there's a fleet of 10 truck, TONNE trucks parked on the roadway to Labidco, and it was being blocked by the residents demanding employment. And someone who was a contractor, which is surprising, maybe, said that what the people said is that contracts are being available to large contractors outside of La Brea while they remain jobless. And one of the contractors, whose name I will not mention, but he gave his name, he was the owner of 3 trucks. And he said he was disappointed with the fact that the community had been bypassed. He said that people said there was no work. And this idea that it would trickle down never happened. And a small contractor never benefited. And essentially, they are saying that they come out from 4 a.m. in the morning to the roundabout by Vestiny roundabout, looking for jobs, holding up placards. And this gave the name, said Junior Sammy must get all the work, but La Brea residents must suffer. So I read that to say, and I'm going to let you come in now, to say that somebody says, well, they don't want work. But what I read there didn't seem like they didn't want work. In fact, they said to me that they wanted work. In fact, they said they had gotten trained, and now their training had gone to nothing. It wasn't that they were sitting there. I'm sure it's true about some, you'll always find that. But the idea that they're just sitting there waiting for a handout, which is CPEP and URP, which is what they're really talking about, whether there's truth. So, Mr. Campbell, I've said a lot. I hand over to you. And what are your points on that general discussion on the fact that they're saying that La Brea workers, they're just looking for a handout. They don't really want work and they want government to mind them.
Good afternoon, Karen, and thank you for having me. And David, thank you a lot for having me. Based on that, those points that you just brought to the foreline, I would start where I totally disagree with the statement that the people of La Brea do not want to work, right? And in doing so, I would try to put forward some pointers that people can feel free to examine, criticize, but they are real pointers that face the situation. Now, what I see as someone who did management, what I'm seeing presented in front of me is a live example of something they call a McGregor's theory, where you have the theory X and the theory Y, right? Where it is perceived that some employees lack creativity, and some believe that the employees want to work and make decisions. I believe that the people of Library want to be able to work and be part of the decision, make some decisions as to what is happening in Library, as well as their charting their future. Now, one of the things I feel that, and you mentioned that what is the role of the government? Now, I am not here to knock any particular government. No, because there were several governments that would have made certain input as to how things would have gone. In front of me, I've been looking at something. NGC had some nice programs as to the direction where things would have gone to. Some started, some would have gone bear small fruits, while others fell by the roadside. And a lot of programs from various governments of the past went through the same thing. And we need to critically examine why these things were happening, right? So if we want to say the government role is not being carried out, and I'm not, as I say, I'm not here to criticize one particular, the government of the day, as well as some of the functions before under different government, would not being followed through to satisfy any sort of success in the programs that they would have outlined, right? And as such, one of the things I tend to look at is that you need to do a critical survey of the working environment, or the those who would have come out from school and are now entering the world of work, right? And see who you're catering for. You set programs, right? That the first thing they say is that there are programs the people do not want to access the programs, right? Yes, there are programs. Some of the programs tailor to the needs of the community. Some it don't find the fit. And what I mean by the fit, when you look at the working population, or the population that need to work, we would have young fathers, young mothers, right? Faced with, as one person would have indicated, rising cost of living and stuff, the need to educate young minds to move forward, right? And the only way that they could do that is to, with whatever job is available at the moment for them, right? So when you have a program and you tell people, I'm giving you a stipend and you can come from, you're required to be there 3 times or 4 times a week or 5 days of the week from 8 to 4 with a stipend. And I have a young child going to school, and we all know nowadays when you, every afternoon or every other week, the school requires something, right? And in order so that the child would not undergo any peer pressure, you have to provide the parent role. So that means getting out there, be it CPEP, which they would criticize, or other programs which it would have had before, the DUDE or the URP, whatever they were, right? But those were the immediate things that would put money on the table to satisfy basic needs, right? If you should tailor programs to fit hours to deal with those situations, I feel we would get a lot more involvement of people coming in to be trained. Because I say, I'm a strong believer of the theory. Why? I believe everybody would be motivated to move forward. They have that strong need to move forward. If you put somebody in, you see the competitive spirit that we have in all of us. If you put people in a work environment, most people try to see if they can elevate themselves, right? But in library and environs, we face with those challenges. One of the other things that you mentioned was the contract situation. And I'm saying this for the people in power or the people with the authority to take note. Yes, you said that there would have been some sort of activities, and it may have been short term. It would have brought us some sort of employment to the area. But yes, it is true that it was given out to major contractors. We can argue that, okay, the major contractors has the capacity to do that nature of work. But it was also promised that the fence line contractors would have gotten work. And if the fence line contractors were given the fair opportunity, it would have trickled down to residents within the area or around. None of that materialized.
Could I ask you what a fence line contractor is?
What they identify as fence line contractors would have been contractors within the Labre and environs area, which would be basically Labre, Vesny, Point Fontaine, or Rosilac, these areas. So they indicated as fence line because where all the activities were taking place. I believe with the demographics, they had a area that they identified. Within this area, we would consider these as fence line contractors. They had a couple of meetings that they used to involve the fence line contractors, but to me, it was just more talk than action. More talk than action. And I'm gonna tell you why. You have the junior Samis. I have no problem with it. They did what they had to do to reach where they are. But they have the finances and the resources to do certain things. Okay, they get the larger contracts. But here the stipulations and the obstacles you put in place for fence line contractors. I don't know if you are familiar, Karen, with the safe to work requirements. They call it
very tough.
They call it STO, right? Mm-hmm. When a fence line contractor is asked to get into the system, one of the things that one of the requirements he needs to fulfill is that he must be STO certified. A contractor who is a small fence line contractor, STO certification is in the vicinity, if I could remember from my days in the industry, it would start from over $50,000.
Wow.
That is the reality of the system. So where a fence line contractor is going to put himself in that kind of environment, you understand? It would breed for all sorts of underhand things or linking with unscrupulous contractors. I don't want to say that it have that out there. I try to be very open, but we know that where there is gray, there is white, there is black, right? So what I'm saying is that you are not making it competitive for the small contractors who have equipment, but they cannot get anything other than what people would say to do a CPEP contract. And that and all is getting very competitive. So when these guys get these things, and then you're faced with all sorts of unscrupulous undertakings before they could even get the contract, and then to get people to work for them, you putting people in a very disadvantageous position. The government or governments of the past and of the day need to look at what are the hard facts that hit a community. So before we say people don't want to work or we put in programs in place, we need to look at the causes and the effects and make proper evaluations about the existing programs, why some of them are not being, accepted in the capacity which the government or the bodies would expect them to be accepted. So on that basis, I would also mention, and when one of the saying is that library people, they're lazy. As you mentioned, someone indicated, like one person indicated, like all they want them to do is to sell mango, right? Now, what I'm saying is that what happened in Labrie is no different to what is going on in Marbella or what is going on in Couva. So let me ask a question. Couva have an industrial estate. You would have the people in Couva, the young people in Couva saying they're not getting work in the industrial estate because most of the people who work in the industrial estate comes from out of Couva, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had Marabella. I would say, because I worked in that area, Marabella, most of the Marabella environment, the people of that environment used to get something out of the refinery area there. So Marabella to me had a slight difference. In the early days in Labrie was like that, right? But we have to accept change. Yeah, we working at changing, we operate in a changing society. So things would really be a slightly different. But the situation in Labrie, Marbella, Couva is really, they mirror one another. So then what we trying to see? The whole country lazy then? Yeah, if you understand what I'm saying, because by stereotyping that the people in Labrie do not want to work. And you have the people in Couva who are going down along that line. Some of the youths complain that way. Marabella, they would complain.
Let me ask you something.
It's a big problem.
Let me ask you something, and then I'll ask David also to contribute. I have a point of view, but I will give it after you both. Yeah, you put it well. Put it very well and very articulate on it. Even when a contract is given, it's a large contractor. You're coming into a community that is not your community. Trinidad is one, Trinidad and Tobago is one country. That is true. But Port of Spain, there are different communities within within the country. If you bring in one of the large contractors to do work, it would seem to me that one of the conditions of the award of the contract is that a certain percentage of the work be given to the Labrie residents, because a lot of them have been skilled up, because a lot of them attended the NESC and a lot of them have a lot of skill sets that can be utilized, as I indicated. So would it not seem to make sense to allow them to get part of it? And also too, I mean, I have nothing against Junior Sammy, very proud, very good, he did very well, and I mean that genuinely. But Junior Sammy had to start from somewhere. He couldn't have been Junior Sammy all the time. Somebody had to help Junior Sammy, give him a hands up.
Correct.
Help him to go to another level. And if he didn't make that hands up, then they let him go and move on. As that, I mean, could one argue then? Two things I am saying. One, that couldn't some subcontracting be given to the residents, and it would cause a better work. It would diffuse the anger a lot, I think, number one. Secondly, would provide employment. And thirdly, give persons who got the exposure more training and more ability for themselves to be able to bid for jobs. And doesn't somebody have to start somewhere? And that is the role of government. I'll just give you one example following what you mentioned about the fence line businesses. And it reminded me of someone who had said, this is a contractor from Aruga, Grand Chemin. He said there was some fishing depot. I hope it's a fishing depot. I got it right. But anyway, it was a government project. But in order to bid for the contract, you had to submit your documents for the tender documents. The amount that you had, and you had no assurance that you'd get the job anyhow. It went to a small contractor to tell me to find $20,000 to go to bid for a contract, on which there are the bigger contractors applying. You will not, and that person said they did not apply because they weren't sure they were going to get it. That's a lot of money for them to lay out. So isn't that indirectly, without telling you it directly, aren't you indirectly discriminating against persons, not by coming and saying it to the person, but by putting in place systems and structures that you can say, no, but we're giving them a chance. We let them do this. We're doing this. We're giving them this. We train them this. But when you go behind that veil, and you look at the reality of the situation, someone will say, but you're really not giving them a chance. You're setting them up for failure. So I want to know if you think that should have been an option, the subcontracting. And couldn't they have found some way out? Because these people are NEC trained, a lot of them are. And a lot of them don't have a job because they close down Petrotren. And Lake Asphalt is a ward of the state, by the way. So I would like to hear your response, and then I'll hand over to David, because I know David has a lot to say on it. I'll forget what you have to say and then go on to David.
Karen, I believe what you said to me was really the way I would have liked to put it over, to be quite honest.
You have put it over well.
And I am, as you spoke about it, I believe that it is a way of actually telling you, we're not giving you this, right? And it comes to, and in one of the we had a little discussion, and I need to bring it back because I believe it's something everybody would have faced. Everybody who entered the world of work, you would have been 16, 17. You probably wanted to go to university, or you wanted to do A-levels, and you went and you do those things for 2 years, 3 years, how long it may take. And then you come out into the world of work. And then you have some stipulations that meet you. Things like, we're looking to hire somebody who, all right, you went and you're trained to be an engineer. We're looking for an engineer. He must be of a certain age bracket, but he must have 5 years experience. So, in other words, they're telling you, you ain't getting no work right now, you know. Because one, if they say you have to be about 28 years, right? That's who they're looking to. That is what it used to be, right? And when you study that, you come out of university or you're training, whatever you went to do to equip yourself for the world of work. And then when you reach out, they're telling you your age bracket must be 25. They ain't hiring less than that. But you need to have X amount of years service. Where are you falling into that? Where are you falling into? It's the same thing with these contracts, right? I have looked through some, what they call it, the forms that when you want to go into qualifying forms. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Karen, when you have time, look at some I feel you would have seen a lot in your time, right? If you look at what are the pre-qualifying conditions for contracts, in order, as we know, we have the Procurement Act, we need to have some of these things in place. But if you are trying to help a community and you apply these, you put these high standards without giving people an opportunity to be part of that growth and then understand that these are the standards that would be required. So we take you in, we evaluating you, you know, to see how you're coming up to scratch. And after a period of time in that environment, you are required to meet these standards. But you're not given the so-called fence line contractors that starting point. They are starting the race. When the race is halfway run, they cannot keep up. They would not get anything. And some of these people would have been promised that, yes, we're going to do this. Yes, and they take the last cent. And who didn't buy weed whackers? Who didn't buy?
I thought you were going to say weed, you know.
Who didn't buy welding machines? Who didn't buy, power washers? I know a lot of starting contractors who spend money that they instead of running to buy a car or running to buy little frivolous things, they bought tools, and the tools is there watching them right now. They're not even given the opportunity to say, well, all right, we're doing a work that is required. It requires a pump. You have a pump. You could produce a pump that is working to do X, Y, and Z. We need a pump for 5 days. We need an operator. We need so and so. And if those things are in place, I believe we would be able to address most of our issues. Because, and I'm going back to say, I am not sitting down and being part of a conversation that Labre youths are lazy. They are no different from the culture what is taking place in the country. Let us deal with it holistically and not target just the Labre youths. I used to work at the Petrotrin refinery, and I was working in a section where we used to undertake all the turnarounds for the refinery. And I could safely tell you on the contractors there, when they were hiring their laborers properly represented in the workforce, properly represented. And the people who used to work was skilled enough to work in the refinery as either riggers, plant fitters, whatever area that they would have had the skill set, they used to work there, right? So you are going to tell me that all of a sudden they lost that skill. Some of these same people running to find work out of the area, but we all know right now the job market is difficult. But it doesn't mean to say the people don't want to work. So I come right back to me and my management stand, that the people are not lazy. They want to be part of something, but it is the system is not in place properly.
I have a view on that which is very politically nuanced. I can't help it, but I don't think it's an unfair one. But I won't say it yet. I want first, we didn't do the right thing, which was to ask people to join us in our conversation. That was an error on my part, and I'll ask David, please do that first, and then give us his input on generally this discussion. And then I'm going to give my input, which is, I'm sorry, but it comes unfortunately from me being having been in the bowels a little bit, and maybe it has made me a bit of a cynic, I will say, but I don't think it is without good reason. But let me figure the numbers first, and then we could hear what David may have to say about Labre's beloved Labre. I promised my grandson I'd come into for a tour of Labre when he finishes SC, and I say you're gonna get a special talk. I'll have somebody who's especially going to take you around. So anyhow, go ahead.
Okay, the numbers you can reach us at is 222-8255, 222-8255, 612-8255, 612-8255, and our toll-free number 866-525-1099, 866-525-1099. Now,
David, before you become the devil's advocate, and you can say all what you were going to say, but I'm going to just give you a little something to chew on as you answer. Somebody could say to you, well, look, we give them bleak asphalt. True, we do have bitumen, but we still have the asphalt pellets. We have TGU operating there, Trinidad Generation Unlimited. We have Caribbean Gas Chemicals Limited operating within that area. In fact, in that southern western area, my understanding, it has the 8th methanol plant in the country, the first in that particular area. They're producing DME. I don't know what exactly, but I know it's a petrochemical, and they've started exporting since 2020. They have Labitco on the Union Estate, where they do have tenants there. And so I mentioned Caribbean Gas Company. So somebody could turn around and tell me, look at the amount of activity inside that small little area. And you are going to tell me that a person's living there. And by the way, we provided I had to look up NESC, because everywhere they wouldn't tell you what NESC was until I finally found out what the acronym is. And I'm trying to find it now as I'm speaking to you. But I did go and look it up. But the NESC, which is specifically, that is what the website says, it's specifically started for the gas and oil industry. And they have different layers of training, but it is for the gas and oil industry. Okay, and they did say, let me be fair, they did say that in 2023 they graduated 23 graduates from their program. I just want to be, what they say, to be transparent. The National Energy Skills Center. And July they showcased their graduates, so whatever the correct terminology is. And Labre happens to be just one of the 11 sites that they operate under. So having said all of that, to the man looking in from the outside, and you're seeing diploma courses, certification courses, short courses. You're seeing surveillance operating outside there in Laramie. That is true. You have the Caribbean Gas Company. You have all the Labidco and Union Industrial Estate. Let me be the devil's advocate. Somebody could look and say, but look at the amount of things that the Brave I should be living down there. Okay, so answer that.
Well, that might be just from somebody's viewpoint, but like Brian and myself, we live in the area and we know what is happening. The effects of the closure of Petrotrin had a real knock-on effect that happened to take away a lot of the job seekers, first of all, and people who were into the that labor force. Because outside of Petrotrin, or when we talk Petrotrin, there were also service companies that supported Petrotrin in its operations. That was affected in a very big way, because a lot of them had nothing to do or had to probably restructure their whole operations when they closed down Petrotrin. The Petrotrin what should I say? The wings of Petrotrin spread all to Palo Seco, Point Fountain, and Labrador to an extent. Now, with the closure of the Petrotrin, it even impacted big times on Lake Asphalt, like I said in the last program. Now, Labidco itself, most of the companies that occupy the Labidco area, it's an area that is on the perimeter of the Pitch Lake, most of it. So I don't want people to get mixed up with that. Labidco is part of the Union Industrial Estate. It's a distance apart. On the Union Industrial Estate, we have TGU and we have the Caribbean Gas Company, people who are doing methanol, strictly methanol they are doing, because I had a chat with one of the operators there and she told me that it's strictly methanol. I was very happy to know that she lives close to me, because most of the specialized workers for that plant are not from Labrador. And the Labidco area that has other companies like Tiger Tanks and the Junior Sammy, also Oil Mess, and these companies, it's a very small percentage of Labrador people that are employed there.
Okay.
If one should look at the rush hour traffic in the morning and in the afternoon, you'd see exactly the effect of that. You would see most of the people who are traveling out of Labrador. Now, in the construction of these industries, especially the methanol plant, that is and TGU, a lot of young people, a lot of people, I should say, were employed as the labor force to get that up and running. But the specialized labor, the specialized workforce, if I should put it like that, most of it, 90% of it, are people from out of the area. Now, what I'm saying is that these companies, like TGU and this methanol company, they do their shipping through the dock at Brighton area, right? They pipe their things down that way. There was a pipe here that was started. It looks like it's still there. Sometimes when I go to Point Fountain, I'll just glance across there, and I mostly see cranes and tractors and okay. Seems like that work was downgraded or something, because we don't see that kind of pipe coating. Is that kind of pipe coating company that was being set up there? That's obliquely opposite to the entrance to the new highway and the same Union Industrial Estate. But what I'm saying is, these companies did not in any way subcontract work to these same fence line contractors as Brian is referring to. I know one of the contractors in person who has a lot of big equipment. He has a lot of big equipment, but for some reason he don't get any kind of contract to sustain his company and to employ other people. So what he did, he rents most of his equipment to other companies. But these companies, they are not seeing Labrador as a place where they can, probably develop smaller entities of what they operate to encourage the young people to work. Like Brian said, and I will always maintain the fact that a lot of people in Labrador are looking for work. You see it all over. Some of them are qualified, but when you look at them when they're going to work, it's either to these fast food companies or CPEP, and URP. I mean, and the biggest workforce to me is in security. You know, a lot of them who, like Brian said, they need to put something on the table. They have children to take care of, they have themselves to take care of. And like I mentioned, the squatting areas, because of people not being able to say, like, buy an agency house or put up a big structure, they start from squatting. And these are the people you would see coming out early in the morning looking for transport to go to work. And most of them, they are employed at the security companies, and then the fast food companies, and then it trickles down to CPEP and URP. You
Well,
know?
let me ask you something, Yasina, because I did go and look up Labidco in particular,
Mhm.
and they said they have 65 spaces. One, I think, set aside for recreational purposes, but currently, well, at least the last information on the website, they had 22 tenants, and among those tenants was Heritage, Namalco, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Kaizen,
Mhm.
Gulf Ferry, and then Anthony's Taxi Corporation. I don't quite understand that. Sami Multi-Lift, Tiger Tanks,
Mhm.
even at Lake Asphalt was one of them, and
Yeah.
Well Services. So what I wanted to ask then is this. Apart from the big contractors, the persons that provide the labor, these are people who drive in to
Mhm.
come to work.
Yeah.
They don't own the businesses, they are working for the business.
That's
So
right.
I'm asking you if those persons have a greater skill set to work in Labidco, to work in the area that the people of Bray do not have. And then what was the purpose of the NESC if that area is supposed to be and still is considered the oil and gas focus because you now have the Caribbean gas. So is it that the qualifications they have, because some of the people who spoke said, I have the certification, but I can't do nothing with it because I can't get a job. So I'm trying to understand. On one hand, you have the contractors who are the big money people who own all and get the big contracts and so on. But then the people who drive in and out of La Brea morning and evening.
Mhm.
What are you saying? These people have a skill set or that the people of La Brea do not have? And if they do not have, why is it they do not have it? So what was the point of the NESC? Maybe because I'm really confused about that.
Well, let me say my part before Brian jump in there.
Mm,
The
mm,
NESC, the skill set that they are providing, or the skills training that they are providing for the young people, it's really like for the energy and industrial sectors. All right. Now when I had a grandson going there, so I happened to go in there one time and see what was happening. It's mostly welding, fabricating, and stuff, carpentry, and I don't think I saw masonry. But that kind of program, to me, they said it's for the energy and industrial sectors, but the people, that the youths that come out of that, they they haven't even touched the surface of the training for the energy and industrial sectors, if you have to put it like that, because they're just kind of like with a certificate of participation. They said that they gave you diplomas and things. I ain't too sure about
Yes,
that.
they said that. They said three categories. Let me just say to be fair,
Yeah.
because I don't want any minister saying I on the show and
Yeah.
I not representing and I didn't go up on their website and I didn't read their website. I went up on your website, okay?
Mhm.
Because I want to be fair and I do want to give an impression that I think they have what they have diploma programs,
Yeah.
right? They have diploma programs where and they say that they're the premier technical training institution in the Caribbean
Yeah.
and they offer industry relevant training,
Mhm.
prepare persons for the energy and industrial sector. The
Mhm.
diploma program is advanced level. You get a diploma at the end into energy and industrial services. Then you have the craftsman's certification, level 2 technician, and they do drill rig mechanics, heavy equipment operator, 3 months, mechanic shop, plumbing, NESC assured craftsman, electronics. Then they have NEC assured craftsman automotive services, and then they have welders. Then they have areas. I'm just telling you what they have. I'm just telling you what they have. The diploma is 2 years, and when you do this diploma, You can be trained in automotive services, drilling, rigs operations, electrical instrumentation, I'm not having all of them. A fabricator, what do you call it? IT network. God, I can't even make up my own handwriting. IT network specialist.
Yeah.
I don't know what the word is. Milo, Millough. I don't know how I pronounce it, but forgive my pronunciation. Refrigeration and air conditioning, welding. And then they have, so when you finish this, November 13, 2023, 500 students graduated. Entrepreneurship, they also have entrepreneurship courses and job assistance. That's what the website tells me.
Well, maybe the website is identifying certain NESC facilities that probably have different courses available, but I'm not certain about some of the diploma areas or anything like that. I know for sure that there were a lot of what shall I say, the kind of vocation that will be from like welding and like I said, what I mentioned before. But what is happening now is that if we concentrate on the library area, the skills that they are putting out at the NEC for the young people, like Brian said, it have to be collaborated with the type of work we have in library. Now, where these companies that we mentioned that occupy the Labitco area, these companies came into the Labitco area. So they brought with them their workforce. So the thought of who is better skilled than who, or if they are better skilled than the library people, I would not say that. Library has a lot of skilled people because Brian can attest. I've been working at Point of Pear also. I worked at the Brighton Refinery also, and there are a lot of skilled people in library. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of people who are going COSTAT and these other educational institutions that can be part of the workforce needed by these same companies. But these companies come into the area and they bring their workforce with them.
But then how is that allowed? I'm going to give you my reason afterwards, because I have very strong views on this. But I want to be open, and I want to not say that I did not say there's another course. Let me say that I said everything. A School of Continuing Education workshops, which I think is a 3-month program. Most of these programs you have to pay up to. The only one I didn't see, they said one is Gate facilitated. One of them, either the diploma or the certification, but one of them isn't. And the cost of the program starts at 1,000 and it goes up to 5,800 depending on what the skill set you're looking for. But they say they will help you. So everything looking good on a piece of paper. I'm not foolish, I understand, though, listen, I wasn't in government just like that. Okay? I wasn't in government just like that. So when you go and ask, sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, but when they ask in Parliament, you could wax poetic, just like what they did to me. I know I might song, I'm going transgentle, but I'm coming off a point. But just like how they caught me, just off guard, which is why you must always be prepared. But then I didn't prepare myself. Well, I didn't prepare myself for what they would have said. And a good example of that was when I was saying, if I may say before I hand it back to you, Mr. Campbell, I was talking about the crime situation in the country. And I was talking about, if you wanted to make it look good, God, you could tell me how the maritime thing have this. When you finish with me, of course, the scanner's not working, 50% of the maritime equipment down. You only find out when they have a joint select committee because they are public servants. The poor DPP only have 57 and you need 134, but you could go on and on and on and on. But the one thing they caught me with, and then is afterwards I went and looked it up. I said, even DNA Forensic Center with the DNA and ballistic testing, they're not testing. Oh, we do have a DNA center. We do the ballistic testing. So I didn't challenge it because I didn't have the information. But, I went and looked it up. And when I went and looked it up, I found out from 2018 to 2021, it was shut down. Yes. The ballistic and DNA testing lab was shut down. Poor equipment and understaffing. And do you know what the backlog looking like? No, I might get it back wrong-sided, but it really doesn't matter. The testing for the samples of the DNA sample, everybody knows if you watch TV, Even if you watch TV, you know DNA number one. They have a huge. It's not national not just state, national center. You go in jail for one offense that is indictable. They taking your DNA and they picking you up whether you live in California or whether you live in New York. They're going to find you, right? Anyhow, so I went there. It's either 32,000 of the samples of DNA still to be tested. 40 something thousand of the ballistics still to be tested. And guess what? Then that Minister of National Security, yes, he is still the Minister of National Security. I know many people are surprised, and so am I. But there we go. But really, I'm not, because then it's a reflection of the government. So he is well pleased. He's well pleased. I'm sorry, Mr. Ambam, but that's how I feel, because I was inside there with many of them. And so the lens is not a thing. And under the Constitution, Section 4 says I don't only have freedom of speech, but I have freedom of political opinion. And there's also something called fair comment. And I fair commenting on them, right? So having said that, then he comes and tells us, even the Express wrote about it. They said the Chinese are going to build 7 times the size of a forensic center in Mount Hope. The Express said, why are they funding it? Why are they saying, what are the facts? You have to ask them questions. We have a procurement legislation. Oh, I forgot. You don't have to go to the procurement regulator if it is a government-to-government arrangement. So there's no oversight. Also, too, it come under the head of national security. So when they buy the jammers and buy the 80 cars, that car lasts more than 3 years, you can't ask them anything because it's under national security, right? But guess what the Americans did? They're setting up a forensic center. Guess where? Not here. No, they're not setting it up here. They're setting it up in St. Lucia, a central forensic center in St. Lucia. You know? So when you read these sort of things, you know, on the show, they could tell me, what? We have a DNA, we have forensic center, but they forgot to say all what I just told you. So that is it. Paint the nice little picture. Go to the website, tell you all that. Let's get the facts. How many of them are trained? How many of them are getting jobs? Because at the end of the day, don't worry to train me if I can't get a job. It don't make sense. What's the point? I might as well stay home. Don't train me if I can't get a job. And you can't give me a living wage job. Because no point you've given me a salary that I cannot mind a parrot on a stick and I have children to attend to school, because you might turn me into a criminal. Yes, because I might get more money taking a quarter thing. I'm not saying you should do it. It's wrong. But I might get more in 1/2 a day working for that and having the CPAP and URP as my cover, and then getting involved in a life of crime, which you would not choose, but you had to eat. You know, I'm not, listen, don't go and misquote me, Mr. Prime Minister or Mr. whoever wants to, I never endorsed it. What I am saying is you are creating an enabling environment for that type of activity. That's what I'm saying. So when you tell me, just as how Mr. McIntyre just said to you, that he knows he went to the training center, but what is the point of telling me all those lovely, 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 lovely sounding things? If at the end of the day, these people are frustrated, and not everybody, one last point before I hand it to you, Mr. Campbell, not everybody is going to want to work. We all have family. The country is a family. Yeah? The country is a family. That's what we really are. And that's why you have a social program, a social ministry, because there are some people who are disabled, shall not work. They're either old, too young, mentally or physically incapable, have a criminal record, all kinds of things that act as a disincentive for them to find a job. So we know there are people like that, but they are by a vast minority. So I want to know, what is the point of training up people and then frustrating them? Because that's a frustration, you know. You go and make me go and spend them here and studying books. Study not fun, you know. I study enough, I know that. And I didn't like books. I didn't like to study, yeah? You wouldn't believe it, but I did like to study, right? Okay. Go study and all 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, you put it on the alarm, waking up, just study to pass this exam. Yeah, you pass the exam. You do all of that. And at the end of it, you have this expectation. And then at the end of it, no work. So what is the point, Mr. Campbell? Help us. Help me to help understand it, because I do understand it, but I'll let you explain it.
Karen, as you said, I am totally confused as well when it comes to that situation. But I wanted to tell you something. And
Yeah.
I don't have the exact information, but
Mhm.
NESC, which you could probably research during the
Mhm.
period of probably 2011 to about 2014, NESC at Pointe-à-Pied, right?
SC is what?
The same NESC
Oh,
program.
NESC. Sorry. Okay, good. Sorry.
Yes. They had a facility at Pointe-à-Pied. In the early stages, it was achieving probably the vision that they would have set out. So you were getting a group of trainees being trained and educated, and then they would go into different parts of the refinery that was there, in different trade areas and work. Some of them went on to be inducted into the refinery itself and became, they went through either the program apprentice. It had the NESC apprenticeship program, and then they had the temporary workforce, and some came in and made it to the permanent workforce, right? But I stand to be corrected, and the reason why I could say that, I had a son going there, and they were actually frustrated. That batch of students that year, in that period of time, and I'm trying to remember if it was around 2012 to around 2014, they would have done all their studies and whatever it is, and I believe some of them still waiting on results as we stand, right?
Yes.
Still waiting. And then apparently that was when NESC was going through some internal problems. And not too long after that, the NESC just fall right down. They as you indicate, they frustrated some of the students. So they went through the training and they told some of them, here what, we would you all would be considered to go in on the training, and they look forward to that. And nothing came out of it. And some of them just decided we're not going anymore. You understand? And it's a case of, okay, we have a good intent, but we're not following up with it. We're not looking at the impact it would have when we do not carry it to bear fruition, right? And we keep talking about, as David indicated, we training people for the petrochemical industry. The petrochemical industry is not what it used to be. So you are training people, or you're offering people courses in an industry that would not be able to take them in, because the industry is not as how it used to be, right? On the contrary, we need to look at the manufacturing side, maintenance side, the necessary skill set that would put you out to be competitive in those environments. Okay, we have an industrial estate here, but how many petrochemical plants other than the two that was stated there that we have there?
That's right.
We all know what is taking place within the CARICOM region. We know what is taking place with our neighbors next door. And they are, how you would call it, poised with the big world players right now, where we cannot even say that we are on that stage, right? And what I do know, and I'm coming back to say, as David indicated, the skill set for going to work we have in library, because if you go to do a small survey, we have people in library working all in Africa, in the oil industry, the petrochemical oil and gas. We have people in Saudi. We have people all over the world from library right here. And when I say, I don't want to say, when I say library, as a person who is directly in library, I don't mean library here. I mean, we start from Guapo coming down the road.
Mhm.
Yes.
From Guapo straight down to Rosilac. That
Yeah.
is what I'm speaking about.
Mhm.
Yes.
That is the environment area I'm speaking about. We have people from there. Do you know?
Make sure you know where you stop, Brian. I have a caller here. It seems like a foreign caller. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, David,
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Shara, and your guest, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah.
I'm listening on this discussion with great interest because I used to be an apprentice at first was Soro before it became Petrotrip. That tells you how far back I go. I think the whole program, I know they've scrapped the apprenticeship program, and I keep wondering why they have done that because instead of expanding something that works, how the program works is that you get students right out from high school, like you reach Form 5, and if you see their interest in going into a trade, you would write a little exam and do some tests and go for your interviews, and you get into the program. The first year, what you do is you get an overall experience with mechanics and woodworking and blacksmith, and it was all inclusive. That was the first set all inclusive, right? But what they did after that year is that you were supposed to choose one of those trades that you wanted to really get into. It gave you an overview, and now you had a choice to make. And once you do that, for the rest of it's a 5-year program. So you do that for the other 4 years, and by the end of that, you become a journeyman. Now, you start off at a low rate of pay, but by the end of it, you work your way up to a journeyman's wage, which was a decent wage for a young person in their 20s. And you could see you're going somewhere because the other component of that trade, that apprenticeship scheme, is that you had to go to either San Fernando Tech or John D. You would do the theoretical part of that work. Now, at the end of that, if you didn't pass your exams, you had no opportunity to go up, or very little opportunity to go. I shouldn't say no opportunity. Very little opportunity to elevate yourself from a journeyman, say, to managerial or something. You had less opportunity than if you had your certificates and stuff like that. So it was a very good program that allowed young people, they know from day one where they were going. It wasn't like you were a writer, I do all these things. I find the NSC programs are very superficial. Very little you could learn without having that hands-on experience with a journeyman, because you had to work with a journeyman to become a journeyman. You couldn't just gather stuff on your own. So the programs that they put in place that replaced an apprenticeship scheme was destined to fall apart. It was destined to fall. I don't know if that's the purpose. On the purpose they did that, they didn't see how to make it work. I don't know what it was, but the apprenticeship program is a very good thing. And you would have thought that they would have seen how it worked. They would have expanded it to other industries. You know, the petrochemicals and all the other, the chemical industry, and because they had melting and all these high industrial things going on in Trinidad, and everything just went down because you always have, in any industry, have an aging workforce. And to replace that workforce, you have to have new trainees coming in all the time, so that there is no lack in productivity, because you have people to replace people when they leave. You don't have to train them because they would have already been trained.
Yeah.
So
I think what you have said. Thank you very much. You know what? I'm very grateful for your intervention. I used a word that stuck with me, and you did explain it. I guess at the end of the day, what you're saying is the apprenticeship program was far superior to what they have now, and what you're asking is why did they not continue with it? But you use the word purposeful, and I guess that's where the person who is the cynic among you, or more of this thing among you, because sitting inside there, you do have a view that the government will be very good at telling you all the things they're going to give you and what they're going to do, what they have in plan, this program. But when you drill down and get them to give you the nuts and bolts and give you the results of what they're doing and the correlation, the relevance to the national development of your country, because we are a tiny little country. We don't have resources to lose and to waste. We have to take our resources, especially now, and maximize them to the best and utilize what we do well. Just as how Mr. Campbell said, we have people from all over, and from the Bray, all over the world. We are recognized as experts in oil and gas. Ghana wants us to, but by the way, Ghana is also too, just as you were saying, and I'm going to hand it back to you, Mr. Campbell, and then to you, David, because I do want to say something more towards the end of the show on my view on the whole thing. But I would, the thing about it is that you have skilled up people. You have skilled up people supposedly in order to be able to contribute to a country with finite resources. And this was the point I was about to make. And you mentioned it yourself, Mr. Campbell. You talked about the other countries. You may have been talking maybe about Suriname and Ghana, but you should add Barbados. Maybe you were thinking of Barbados. But what I would say to you is this. Subject, unless the story is not true, or you have this information, but I don't think it was. Kaita News, and the Prime Minister of Guyana is saying that they enter into agreement with Barbados, that they're going to clear part of their port, so that the big ships that are coming in with the large cargoes can offload in Barbados, offload on Barbados and unload to smaller ships and take it directly from Barbados to Ghana. Because what happens now is they will do that, come to Port of Spain or to one of the ports in Trinidad and have the offloading and the unloading, and then we would take it. But now they're saying they're making space for them in Barbados. That's not the only thing. The gentleman has gone on record as saying, we don't want your refinery. You say your refinery old, and that's not necessarily true. And you know that, Mr. Campbell. It may be 100 years old, but there are large parts of it that have been refurbished over time. Okay, so it's not a thing. But the point is, he said, we don't want it. Because of repairing it is too much. We're going to get one refinery, and we're getting it built by an MOU with the Dominican Republic. And I said this last week, the LNG, no, we don't want you to move it over there. They're old. But, I don't know if he really means it's too old or you don't want it. So don't forget, don't bring the LNG trains over there. Oh, and the pipeline, don't hold your breath over that pipeline with Dragonfield, which is another conversation by itself. Because I know you're watching, Trinidad is in a very difficult situation now with the arbitral award, because Venezuela is being very aggressive towards Guyana, which is a CARICOM country, a member of CARICOM. Remember that. That is not Venezuela. And they are having maritime incursions along the border, claiming 2/3 of Guyana, and saying as recently as about 2 or 3 days, the vice prime president or whatever, the lady, I can't remember her name now, I believe it is she, that says it doesn't matter what the International Court of Justice decision comes to. They don't care. They're not listening to it. They're doing what they're going to do, and they're taking their land. You hear what they say? That's Venezuela, against a CARICOM country, right? So we have a situation where you have not developed, in my respectful opinion, the relationship that we should have nurtured with Guyana. That's face the reality. They open up a multi-million-dollar facility to make flour, all different grades. They have money card done. Money card done. They have, and you know what they say? We're not going to make the mistake of Trinidad. Don't be vexed with them, They are CARICOM brother and sister. Don't be vexed with them. You can't be vexed with them. When we had, they don't. And now they have. This is why you should be glad to be part of CARICOM. But I think we did I think our leadership, let me put it that way. Our leadership made some missteps. I don't want to say it was with regards to the elections, because I can't remember it exactly, and I don't want to get myself in trouble with it. But I'm not too sure we were so enthusiastic that the former leader was no longer the leader. And the message that I get from from Ghana, is that they prefer to do business with Barbados than with us. They want our skills, they want our people, because we have the knowledge which they do not have. But why we should not now? I think we try now. I hope it's not too late to really try and look towards Guyana, because Ghana is the new Western frontier. That's where the gold rush is. It don't matter. We don't have it. They have it. Don't get vexed. Instead of getting vexed, say, you know what? That's what England and all those big European countries did to us for centuries. And we didn't mind giving them our cocoa to make Cadbury chocolate. We didn't mind England saying they're having tea at 4 when they grow no tea. So don't get vexed. Say, you know what? Look, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, etc., etc. Maybe we're trying to do that now. But we really need to develop a very strong bond with our CARICOM brothers and sisters, in particular Suriname, in particular Guyana, Jamaica, as well, of course, Barbados. And I think if we do that, whether we have our disagreements among ourselves, you think them EU people don't have their disagreements? I'm sure they do. But we are stronger together. And right now, Mr. Campbell, you know that we're in trouble with the natural gas. You see that dragon field? I telling you, don't hold your breath on it. You see the manatee? Don't hold your breath on it. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's not happening right away. If it does happen. But we have time for that discussion. So
I am wondering, Karen, the I wouldn't say neglect of Guyana working with us, because there are a lot of Trini companies down there, and there are a lot of Trini workers down there too. But we have started a sort of a what should I say? So a kind of involvement with Venezuela, with the gas and the migrants and all of this, and now Venezuela is taking on CARICOM, but we cannot change our position now with Venezuela like a snap of the finger. And I think Ghana is looking at that also. They are
exactly.
We have ties with Venezuela, and Venezuela is encroaching on their property.
And let me just tell you something. I'm not going to tell you the WhatsApp group that I belong. I still am. I am supposed to be on it, but I stopped contributing. You know why? I feel very strongly about that. This is a CARICOM English-speaking country.
That's right.
These people are trying to take 2/3 of the people land in the Essequibo. Yeah. These are the people that try to break up CARICOM and Petro-Caribe. These are the people. I'm not saying to hate the Venezuelans. And tell them love your CARICOM brothers and sisters, because that's where your future lies. But you see, to be fair too, and Mr. Campbell, please, you're going to let you talk next. To be fair, if I were in government, I'd be in between a rock and a hard place, because the natural gas in the country has gone down to 2.7 billion cubic feet per day. And even though they have these small Zandoli and all these other little oil gas producing, it's not enough. The Prime Minister himself has said that you need at least 4.1 billion cubic feet, and we can't get it, at least not now. Okay, that is the reality. And the reality is Ghana does not seem to be an option, because getting a pipeline from Ghana, from Kaita to Point 14, I think it's 200, it's anyways a lot, and very costly. So the reality is Trinidad is caught between a rock and a hard place, because we have failed in this country, and I blame this government a lot. Because they had 8 unbroken years. They didn't get broken up. 8 unbroken years to read the tea leaves, to look at the crystal ball, to look at the foreign exchange reserves position, look at the Bank of Jamaica. You think Bank of Jamaica don't want our money? They don't want our money because they think it's overvalued. That's what I think. Okay, Mr. Minister of Finance, I think it's done money laundering only. I also think it is also, they think it's overvalued. Okay? We having a lot of problems with our currency. Right? We're having a lot of problems with our economy, and they just keeping it up. They're just with the fiscal deficits and so on. So what I'm saying is Trinidad's really in a rock and a hard place, because right now, to get that natural gas, the natural gas coming from Manatee, Lauren Manatee, if you could get onto the Venezuelan side, and most the Dragon Field. But you see, and that's what we're depending on, because that's where the natural gas, because forget about oil. We close down the refinery. So once you close down the refinery, Lake Asphalt gone by the wayside with bitumen, right? And Heritage and all of them is 57,000 barrels per day we producing of crude oil, you know? So forget about the crude. We know we're not an oil producing economy anymore. And refinery, Mr. Mann, close it down. Mr. Prime Minister, close it down. But I didn't know if he had a plan, because if he had a plan, nobody knows it. And he still hasn't revealed it. And that's why the people have got a break suffering. And that's why I say, Mr. Campbell, you know what? The break is different. You know why it's different? You cannot take a whole economy or society or community whose livelihood has been based on bitumen from the Lake Asphalt, from the whole economy that has built up, whether it's the banks, the food, the national, all the things that have been built up around it, and trained up people that they can't use that trade. You cannot do that and pull the rug from under them, and then tell them, hey, you have to fight up with that. You cannot do that. That is not right. If they would never had anything, well, they never had anything. But if you had them with something, and then one morning you woke up, as far as the country is concerned, and then pull the rug from underneath them, and then keep making promises which have never come to pass, just a lot of talk. We have this program, that program, that program, that program, that program, and all that. What does that matter to these people? So when people want us to be hard, I say Labre is even different from a lot of them. Even Labitco, having all of these companies, you should have made it a condition that they had to take a certain percentage of the workers from the community. You had to make it a condition that the fence line workers had to get part of the play. You think Junior Sammy and NH and all of them became where they came? Well, good for them. I'm not against them, you know. Nobody come and rank tell me I say anything different, you know. I did not say that. But it didn't happen overnight. Somebody gave them a hands up. And what it looked like, you keep some getting a hands up and some saying right there. So they continue still today. And I'm very sorry to say this, but I believe it. I truly believe it. That's CPAP and URP, which Dr. Trevor Farrell said. He said in the minds of many in 2016. He said in the minds of many, it's not only this government, all governments have used it as a form of political patronage. I am not saying we don't need to have social programs. I will never say that. But what I will say is you can't be increasing the CPAP, but just enough, but not enough. And these people have to be suffering, and you just abandon. As far as I'm concerned, all of it is just cheap talk, because as far as I am aware, unless something happened overnight, up to now, all the things we have spoken about, nothing has happened. But they could tell you that in Parliament, they're doing this, they set up this, they set up this, they set up this. Doesn't matter. I was in government, and my Prime Minister, I could tell you for sure, I could tell you, he didn't want to hear about what I was going to do, you know. He gave me a list of things to do, and you better do them. So whether you like it or not, I did the property tax. Whether you like it or not, I did it because that was my instructions. I was ready to send out those bills. Whether you like it or not, there's a number of things. Dealing with Hindu Credit Union, CL Financial, all those things. Whatever we had to do, we did it because we were because he put the pressure on himself, which he put on us. He's sleeping 4 hours a day. He tell you to take vacation after, which was not, I didn't agree with that. Telling you to take vacation after the 5 years. I mean, that was not reasonable. But that's what he would tell you. I mean, that's how hard he pushed you. But the point was, I worked with a government that was results focused. So I cannot understand. And I'm not saying that leadership was perfect. I am not saying that. But results focused, it certainly was. So Mr. Campbell, explain to me, how could they do that? How could you take away the bitumen from Lake Asphalt? How could you close down petrol and not give people an alternative and leave these people with skills that they cannot use? what is the point? Why did you do that? And how could you justify it and then turn around and say that these people have no ambition? I cannot understand. I am not saying the government said that. I'm saying people say that.
Right. As I indicated when we started, I told you my stand on that, right? And I cannot say why those things were done, but we all know that it was done, right? And you made a point just now, and I sat here thinking about it. Right now, they have been, and there are the detractors who would be listening in on this program and say, but you know, we have this, we have that. One of the things that come to mind is that the first thing some would say is that there is a register with defense line contractors in Labitco, because there was a Labitco office and they pass around and they take. But okay, you register. What came out of it? Nothing. They would have had a list of contractors, small contractors, who would have gone in and registered. I myself went to a couple meetings in that office there, and to me, that was all it was, right? Now, you mentioned something, and I'm going to say, lately I've been seeing a lot of programs where they're offering a lot of training again with port training that is, it involves working on a port, right? A lot of training centered around that. But if you would backtrack with the situation with Guyana and Barbados and the shipping industry, right? They are telling or selling to the community here that there is going to be a lot of work taking place with a shipyard or whatever it is on, I believe, the section of Labrie that is more heading to the Point Fontaine area, right? But when you see what is happening within the Caribbean with our neighbors, the Guyana, the Barbados, and the idea of going to Barbados to do the shipping instead of, it asks you what would be the outcome of any project that's going to be seeking to sort of embrace that type of heavy activities that they're foreseeing. Because if this is going to be taking place between Guyana and Barbados, we would not have the type of activities that they are foreseeing. So it may be another pipe dream for the citizens of Labrie. And as I would say, and I come in right back, we need to set up programs, right? We already missed the boat with the program. The gentleman came in and spoke about the apprenticeship, and I totally agree with that gentleman.
Me too.
Because I have seen it work. Most of the people around my age and a little older were products of that system, and very skilled people. They're now retirees, and they could tell you the benefits of that, right? I have actually seen it work. I work among people who came out of that system. We missed that boat, and we adopt a system where we, with the education coming out of the universities and this stuff, and we call it when you internship. Internship is different from the apprenticeship system, right? An internship just puts you for about 6 months or so in an environment to sort of assist you with the technical part of the academics you are doing, right? But it's not something like the apprenticeship training, hands-on. So we missed that boat, and we need to start to look again at how within this society now we could do something that is a best fit, taking into consideration what we have in front of us, who is leaving school, who needs to be trained, who have families existing, and need to blend that training with their daily duties, right? We are having a discussion, and I like to sit after and look at solutions. So in my silent moments, I like to sit down, make points, and see what are proposals that could come forward that could go to the correct forum to assist in some sort of drive that would not be just a mama guy people. It would be to put things in place that people could utilize properly, right? As I indicated, I don't want to blame any particular government, but they have to take blame where it falls, right? This one, previous ones, or whatever it is, right? And we need to correct those ills. Those ills need to be corrected. And we cannot just say we're putting out programs and nobody's utilizing the programs. And as I'm saying, there will be the naysayers and the detractors who are going to come and say that we sat on this program and we didn't give recognition to all the things that in place. But yes, you put in things in place, but could they be utilized?
And I don't think we are saying that. I think, let me just, at least I hope none of us here is saying that. None of us is saying that here.
No.
I think what we are saying, the fact that we could talk about the programs that we have spoken about, and in fact, I think the Energy Chamber was involved in helping with facilitating these programs and so on. I think quite apart from the fact, well, one of the listeners did say that he thought it was not as good as, okay, that's, and you have gone through a program, so that's one thing. But I think what we are saying, I think the bigger thing that I think, at least I am trying to say, and I would like David to chime in here soon, because the thing is, I think we have to re-engineer how we think. All countries go through that. Something that worked for hundreds of years. Suddenly the Industrial Revolution happened. I'm just saying, that just came to my mind. What I'm trying to say, it's a shock to the system. Computers came, Apple came. People had to adjust, and it took it was a great change. I mean, it was a great change. And what I really am saying is this: Petrotrin has been closed down. I don't think it's been ever open up again. And the longer it stays closed, the longer it's going to not be opened up again, more than likely. So then we have to recognize then that a lot of these skills that you might have trained up for use in the refinery were no longer needed. However, that does not mean that's the end of the day. And that's where I would cast blame, because you can't have people living off of CPF and URB, which is every government does it. It is a form of political patronage and control. And that is not good for the people. And when I read somewhere, but I couldn't find it out, so please don't hit me on my head for saying 20,000 people, but my last reading was 20,000. And I know that, you say you're going to pay them more. I mean, you're keeping them down in subjugation because you're not really training them up. It's almost as if you want a recruitment fodder for them to be involved in activity which is not in their interest, which gets them on the headlines for the wrong reasons. And we don't want to see that a government can be seen to be part of that. And that's how it's coming across to me. And that comes to the re-engineering part. If it is our natural gas situation is what it is. If it is Guyana playing hardball and they don't mind, we could go up there. We could go there and set up companies. There's a company in Trinidad that is Guyanese owned but operating here, Ukono or something like that, which is a small LNG plant. There's Novo, which is doing agro industries. We can have much more of that because Trinidadians are very skilled. We have UTT, we have CoStat, we have, you name it, so many tertiary level education. We have such skilled people in different ways. There's no way that we can't make it, but if we get the opportunity. But so what I am saying, and I'll hand it over to David because I know it's one of his pet areas, I am not saying to abandon natural gas. I am not saying that. I am saying that one, the Labitco, I think you need to look at it and make sure that you have an agreement that a certain percentage of the work is given to the persons from the community. And if they are not trained, train them, apprentice them. So say, they don't have the training, and that's why. You know, that no, you can't do that because you are setting up a situation of poverty, of low self-esteem. It's not good. It's a bad look. Okay, so that's one thing. Then the opportunities to be involved in building things. You need to give jobs to defense line workers. You are the government. You can't put in conditions that you know people can't fulfill or won't be able to fulfill, and then that's your excuse. It looks as though it's a deliberate. It appears as though it's deliberate to say, well, it's not that we didn't want to give you the job, It's just you didn't qualify. Well, how are you going to qualify when you put the condition I couldn't qualify? I was in government. I understand those things. So what I would say is this. They talked about a carpenter. You mentioned that to me, David, a carpentry, because one of the things they said they were skilled in, I don't know if the person made a mistake and said it, but I actually quoted it from a newspaper article, saying carpentry. But the tourism is huge in Barbados. Tourism is huge all over. We have the natural asphalt. I know it's both industrial and tourism, but we can do so much with an Airbnb sector. With a small, there was a joint select committee in 2019 that recommended that. You can provide so many opportunities for people who right now may not be skilled in energy sector. They could still use it when in Labidco and Union Estate, give them opportunities there. Or when we get natural gas, wherever it come from, we will be able to use their skill set still. But in the meantime, also, let us use these skills and develop new skill sets. And one area, you're sitting on a gold mine, but it's a black tar mine that can provide a living, not a kind of a shack thing back in the day in the 1960s when somebody's thing and is selling a little bit of Benny balls and a Tulum thing. No. We're doing it in an elegant first world way. We need to bring in people to train them properly in their attire and all that. So I hand it over to you, David. You tell me what you think are some of the things that can be done from the break. And also you, Mr. Campbell, in the last 40 minutes, I'll give you all the last word because it's your neck of the woods.
Well, I've been dealing with this development of the Pitch Lake area for years. I remember I started the Tour Guides Association back in the late 80s. And then right after the coup, I got into the media, and I really loved that. So I handed it over to some other people to operate it. But it kept sliding down the hill, and it had reached a stage where I decided, no, I have to get back into this thing because I know the potential of this. I've met with a lot of heads. Let me just say heads because I don't want to get in problems with them because they might say, I say this and I say that. But it is frustrating, Karen. It is highly frustrating to sit down with these people and we holding meetings after meetings, and I'm telling them about what they call it my idea. It is really my idea. I've done big proposals, I said about it already, about the development of the Pitch Lake, which is not just that area we call the Pitch Lake. It extends to the Tower area. It extends to inside the village where they said Walter Raleigh came. I mean, I have history. So I can tell people about the history. Now, there's a scientific description of the Pitch Lake as well as a folk story about the Pitch Lake. But the whole idea, the B&B and the setting up of the tower area and all of that could be so expansive, But what I find happening, I am not the only one in Library who has ideas about developing the thing. We spoke with the Renwick last week, and his group, the Library Association of Innovation, they have other ideas too that entails a workforce of people who are not all that qualified in vocation and academics. But these people are very good. Brian can attest to it. Library has some of the best cooks and things, people in craft and things. There's a guy named Roy Henry, on the way to where I lived, on the way to the Pitch Lake there. He's an I can't find a word to describe his talent as a sculptor, a wood sculptor. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of talented people, vocational, social style, with the hospitality sector, if I should call it that, and we have academics, because I know a lot of brilliant families Even Brian's family has a lot of academics in the family. I can call the Francis family. I can call a whole bunch of people who I have gone to and said, listen, this is my idea about developing the pitch league. So when the time comes, if it's needed, I'll call you guys because I'm the person with the idea, but I need a team to effect the accomplishment of this massive. Because I keep telling them, just how people will go to Canada and come back and say, David, if you go to Niagara Falls, you would see. And they tell me it in this kind of dramatic, theatrical kind of way. And I would tell them to, like when I meet this ministry official and thing, I say, see that same kind of theatrics this people come to me with? I want people to come to the pitch lake. They must leave with that in their mind too. They must go back to Canada, USA, Europe, wherever, Germany, wherever they come from, and say, I've been to the pitch lake. It's spectacular. And describe it to me just how they're describing the Niagara Falls and this kind of thing. Why can't we do it? It's a sort of pussyfooting, shame to put it like that, and a sort of delaying tactics. And we'll call you and we'll have to talk to this next one, and a set of delaying tactics that is keeping back that development that I know Karen can employ.
What about the mud volcanoes and the Devilwood Yard? What about that too?
That is sort of a kind of out of the area. I have another call coming, but
David, I want to interject 1 minute.
Yeah.
We have the tower in Library.
Yes.
For those who don't know,
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
It was a building that was used in the days of the war.
Yeah.
It was a war building.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of the highest point.
Yeah.
That if you go into the tower and you go up to the tower,
mm-hmm.
you're able to see the country.
A panoramic view of the whole western
panoramic
coast.
view of the country.
Yeah.
And what we have, we have these businesses in Library, and they're not operating like corporate citizens.
That's it.
Because if you want to develop and like for tourism, and you should assist with revitalizing the tower could be an extension of those who go to the pitch lake.
Exactly.
And
you could, there are certain things that you could put there, and it gives a museum effect.
That's right.
If anyone have been to Barbados, they would see where some of these buildings exist in Barbados, and you pay a fee to go and see these things. And I'm not knocking my sister country because I'm of Barbadian heritage, but what I'm saying is that
who was the police officer in your family?
Family of academics, I told you.
No, most Barbadians that came here as police officers, maybe his great grandfather.
That tower is huge. The proposal I did entails part of the tower. It entails, it's tall, Karen. It's about 3/4 of the Twin Towers,
Wow.
So you get this panoramic view of the whole coastline and a lot of the country.
And a storyline. You can do a little booklet. Lunches.
The floors, I told them each floor could showcase something different about Library.
Wow.
The area itself. I don't want to say much about it now because
don't give away your secret. That's that's an intellectual property. Don't let anybody steal it from you.
So I am just waiting to what is keeping us back is our registration. Imagine that. The registration is a thing that is within.
That's not what keeping you back. There's I will tell you what's keeping you back. And I will say that about all governments too. But I will fall this one in particular only because they recognize that we didn't have the oil. We didn't have the oil anymore. Okay, that's a fact. We have some touchstone and some of them operating online and so on. I mean, on land and so on. We just don't have enough. I mean, we didn't really have enough before. We used to import it and refine it. But when it came to the natural gas, even the Prime Minister said in September 2019 that the optimum amount is 4.7 billion cubic feet. And in I don't know, I don't want to get the wrong year. I think he may have said 2010, 29, no, around there. We had 4.1 billion cubic feet. That was the greatest amount. But now we're down to 2.7 and give or take a little bit because the billion you're talking about. So the reality is that until we are able to monetize the natural gas from the dragon fruit, which I am not holding my breath over, or the manatee, maybe, and then the Tobago offshore, until we can monetize it. But even when we can, I think the general attitude has been we have seen ourselves as the gas economy of the Caribbean and taken a sense of pride in that thing. Oh, we don't have to rely on tourism. We don't have tourism. As a service industry, there are plenty of money. And guess what I'm bringing in? Something called foreign exchange, which we don't have enough of, right? And it's how you do it. If you're going to do it and we can have Bel Air shows, we can have all kinds, but it's how you do it. You can do it in an elegant, upmarket way that is first class. The tourist of today is an tourist as one's experience.
Yes.
But he does not want to come to a place where you have a little shack, a person with a, when I was growing up as a child, I was showing my age, Woolworth and Stephen thought, when I lived in Point Fortin, but Christmas I used to go into town. And Stephen Todd and Fogarty, the only place that had an escalator, and everybody have their little box in front with a Broadway cigarettes and Paradise Plum selling and a little tambourine bowl. We passed, and shack made in China. We passed that stage.
Of course.
We passed that stage, and we can compete with any country in this world. We have Arthur Lockjack. We draw the most exclusive, inclusive facts in this world. We have the sophistication in this country to be first class at tourism and earn foreign exchange. But there's some kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't even put it on the hands of the Minister of Tourism, because having been in government myself, you get a finite piece of the pie. And unless there is a commitment, I cannot speak for the Prime Minister, and I am not trying to speak for him. All I'm saying is the leadership sets the tone, and the leadership says where that boat is going to sail. And if the leadership says we're sailing in this direction, then you will see a pickup in that. And that is what I would not blame any particular minister who we think is not being as active as you would like to see him be, whether it's agriculture. I would not want to do that. I would probably say, and I'm sorry, but this is how I feel from being on the inside, it's that it comes from the leadership and the tone and what the leadership considers of importance. And I think it's time for the leadership to recognize we have very good opportunities for foreign exchange earning, because we have a community that is extremely sophisticated and first world. What do you say, Mr. Campbell? We have 3 minutes. I'm giving it to you. You're best.
And as you put it, it was well put, Karen. I agree with all that we have discussed on this program here today, right? And the opportunities, as you indicated, you just show that we are first class, right? But we need that. I come right back to the powers that be. We need to embrace with stakeholders, and stakeholders coming out of the community, people like myself and other people, and David, who we actually have an investment and interest in seeing the things move forward. We have a first-hand as to what would have affected the area. Some of us know where we came from, the period of time that we went through, how to put it, depression, and the things that would have been put in place to stimulate growth that failed, right? And you cannot come back and keep doing the same thing that would have failed and expect a result out of it. As we all know, that is insanity. So I'm not saying that some of the programs were not good, but they need tweaking. They need tweaking to suit the present situation, right? And if we get people to come off, a lot of egos take place. And as David indicated, he put forward some ideas and they say that is his idea. So they don't want to run with it. So what if he put forward a good idea And it is feasible, it is workable.
True.
But there are egos at work. People
That's
who like to label things and say, this was my baby,
true.
right?
Yeah.
And once you doing that in a community,
True.
you are not going to push the community on a path of growth.
But that's why you need the outside. That's why you need the outside
Right.
enablers, which is the government, honestly.
And this is where we come right back to the role of the government, as you indicated. What is the role of the government, right?
Yeah.
To take something
Enable
like
an
that,
opportunity. That's what they are.
opportunities, and make good governance where that is concerned.
Yes.
And not use library like we have been used for as far as I could remember. And as you would say, I'm putting my age out there.
I did mine already.
Many decades, and David would know.
Yes, it is true. It is
I
true.
came from the area of library, and David would tell you that was once and I'll be proud to say it.
Yeah.
It was the Westmorelands of library.
That's right.
It was the Westmorelands of library.
Yes.
I can remember Sunday afternoon. Walk was for your parents to take you. And you had the privilege to go beyond the barriers in Brighton.
Yes.
And walk down and watch the buckets go down to 6, 7, 8, 9 ships out into the ocean.
Yeah.
Wow.
Waiting to
And now we're going to get in trouble, Mr. Campbell, because it's so on, and you were very rude to somebody who called in. And I apologize profusely for not having the person join us. My mea culpa. I am very sorry because
to take that call, we would have gotten into trouble to take that call, and I really wanted Brian to.
All right. Well, we can have another session another day.
Yes.
But it's time for us to go. And Mr. Campbell, Brian Campbell, it was a pleasure having you on. As usual, David McIntyre.
Yes.
And I think what we try to do, hopefully, is be responsible in what we've said. We are not here to pull down. We're here to lift up.
Yes.
That's
I must let you guys know too that a lot of people were onto the program today. Raj Paul, Rena Jennings, Swallow, Diana Benskin, a whole lot of people. So the program attracted a lot of listeners.
And we want you to know that we're not here to pull down anybody. We are here to uplift our community. And it's just that we, as me, having been in government, want to see more for Labrie. That's all it is. Yes. And we have to say goodbye. Thank you, Brian Campbell, my wonderful David McIntyre. I don't know what I'd do without him. And me, Karen, to share your other co-hosts. Have a good evening to everyone who tuned in, and tune in next week. And we certainly want to hear from you.
Good.
Thank you for
I want to thank you very special, Brian, for being part of the show and supporting the cause for Labrie.
Thank you, David.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. That's it for today's edition of Hard Talk, Power 102 Digital Monday. Join us again tomorrow for another edition.